Hello students, last time we have explained about the competition. Today we are going to explain the next point, that is beneficial associations or the relationship between the various organisms of the community. So the animal associations may occur between the individuals of the same species or different species, ages, sizes, or the sexes. Means the animal association can occur between the individuals of the same or different species or variable age, size, and the sexes. The purpose of associations such as reproduction, feeding, protection, transportation, etc. means these are the some type of uh, requirements or the needs of the different organisms and which could be satisfied from one another. Animal associations are sometimes very intimate or close or very casual or mutually beneficial, means both the partners of the association will help each other, that is a mutual transfer or exchange of the needs, or mutually beneficial or may not be beneficial or extremely one-sided, that is only one organism will get its benefit and other will get harm, that is only one member getting the benefit, that is a parasite. So the animal associations may occur between the individuals of the same or different species or same or different ages, sizes, or the sexes. And the purpose of associations are either the requirement or the need of the reproduction, feeding or food, protection, transportation, etc. Animal associations are sometimes very intimate or close or very casual and mutually beneficial or may not be beneficial or extremely one-sided, that is only one member getting its benefit. The animals of particular community the animals of particular community live in a specific environmental condition or the habitat. For example, freshwater habitat, desert habitat, or the parasitic habitat are the different type of habitats of the animals. So all the organisms, whatever the organisms or the species of the organisms living in a particular environment or the habitat or the ecosystem, they live in a specific environmental condition or the habitat, and these are either freshwater habitat, desert habitat, or the parasitic habitat are the different types of the habitats of the animals. The survival of the animals depends on how it can respond to the different components of its environment by developing habits. So each and every organism which lives in the particular habitat, which responds with a particular environment or the environmental component and developing its habits as per or according to the environmental conditions. Each animal occupies a particular physical space. Each animal occupies a particular physical space called as ecological niche. So whatever the environment or the habitat is uh, forming a particular physical condition or a space that could be occupied by the every animal or each animal. So each animal occupying a particular physical space or the part of the environment called as ecological niche. It is the place where the animal plays its functional role in the community. So whatever the activities performed by the animal species will perform a particular role in the community, how it is influenced by the environmental factors, and how it interacts with other animals and the plants. Means whatever the species or the organisms living in the particular habitat, they perform their role or by its activities in the particular habitat. So this can be influenced by the environmental factors. So the functioning of or the activities of the every organism or each organism is influenced by the environmental factors or how it interacts with other animals or the plants. In short, animals' habitats, in short, the animal's habitat is its address. In short, the animal's habitat is its address. That is the address of the animals, that is their habitat, respective habitat. Its habits are its lifestyle. Its habits are its lifestyle means whatever the activities, that is feeding, locomotion, breeding, or whatever the behavior of the particular species is the habit or its a lifestyle, and the niche is its profession. The niche is its profession means whatever the role performed or played by the particular organism in the ecosystem is called as the ecological niche. That is, the niche is its profession. So generally, the animal associations are classified into two categories, namely intraspecific association and the interspecific association. So generally, there are two types of animal associations, that is intraspecific and interspecific associations. Symbiosis. Symbiosis. The term symbiosis, this is the Greek word. Sym means together and bios means alive. So the term symbiosis was proposed first by D. Barry in 1879 to mean, or it means, living together of two species of organisms. So the two species or the organisms of two species, the organisms of the two species or different species living together with a complete harmony or with a friendly relationship is called as symbiosis. So the usual meaning of the symbiosis is the living of two organisms of two species together. So this association is generally of a friendly nature. So the term symbiosis means the two organisms belonging to two different species living together with a complete harmony or with a friendly relationship. So this association is generally of a friendly nature and not harmful to each other. In symbiosis, one organism is called as symbiont. In symbiosis, one organism is called as symbiont, which is generally smaller than its associate called as host. Means, in the relationship of the symbiosis, the symbiont usually getting benefit from the another organism, that is host. Although a symbiote lives in a close physical contact with its partner, although a symbiont lives in a close physical contact with its partner, exhibits different degree of intimacy. Different degree of intimacy means different degree of their relationship or their different degree of the intimacy or the closeness, or wide variation in permanency or of the association, wide variation in permanency of the association, and the degree of pathogenicity or a degree of pathogenicity. Sometimes this symbiont may cause harmful effect or may leads to the symptoms of the certain disease, that is the pathogenicity. So some sort of damage or the loss to the host can also be given by the symbiont. That is a degree of pathogenicity. So the symbiont, which lives in a close physical contact with its partner and shows different degree of intimacy, means the relationship, degree of relationship may be close or mere or the partial. Then wide variation in permanency of association. So it may lose for a certain period or shorter period, or may lose for a longer period of the time or permanently with the its partner or may lose throughout its life with the partner. That is a wide variation in permanency of the association and the degree of pathogenicity. That is, sometimes due to the living habit of the symbiont with its partner can also lead to some amount of damage to the host organism. That is the degree of pathogenicity. Thus, such partnership explained by special names, and thus such partnership explained by special names or the terms such as phoresis, commensalism, mutualism, and the parasitism. So these are the different type of animal associations. These are the different type of animal associations in a relation with the symbiosis. In relation to the symbiosis, these are the various terms. So, where there is a different degree, where there is a different degree of relationship, that is the degree of intimacy, wide variation in permanency of the association, or the degree of the pathogenicity. So, with the consideration of these parameters or these different aspects, the uh, symbiosis or the partnerships, such partnerships or relationships can be explained by the various terms or the special names such as phoresis, commensalism, mutualism, and the parasitism. So the criteria to distinguish these associations are the degree of dependence and the relative benefit or the loss resulting from the particular type of partnership. Getting it? So the criteria to distinguish or to define the criteria to distinguish or to differentiate or to define these associations such as phoresis, commensalism, mutualism, or the parasitism are the degree of dependence, the degree of the dependence of one organism on another organism, and the relative benefit or a loss, and the relative benefit to one partner or a loss to the other partner resulting from the particular type of relationship or the partnership. Depending on the type of association, depending on the type of association, the symbiont is variously known as forant, a commensal, a mutualist, or a parasite. So, depending on the association of the symbiont means a organism which is usually getting benefit or the advantages of the association. So, the symbiont means the the meaning of the symbiont is the organism which is usually getting advantage or the benefits of the relationship from the other organism, that is a host. So these symbionts can also be variously known as the forant, a commensal, a mutualist, or a parasite on the basis of degree of dependence. On the basis of degree of dependence and the relative benefit or the loss resulting from the relationship or the association, the symbiont may be called as a forant or a commensal or a mutualist or a parasite. Let us see the characteristics and the distinguishing features of these different associations. So we'll explain these relationships, we'll explain the these relationship or a different type of relationships or the partnerships such as phoresis, commensalism, mutualism, or the parasitism with respect to their characteristics and the distinguishing features. We'll explain them one by one. So first we'll explain about the type of animal association may be called as a phoresis. So the phoresis is a non-obligatory or a temporary and usually accidental type of association in which one organism merely or partly or partially provides the support, shelter, or the transport to the another organism of the different species. So poresis is a temporary or accidental type of association in which one organism provides one organism provides partial support or a shelter or the transport to the another organism of the different species. So phoresis is just a loose type of or a loose form of the relationship where one organism provides a mere support or the partial support or shelter or transport to another organism of the different species. For example, the barnacles. The barnacles that is which are of marine habitat and which lives on the cells of the bivalve mollusk or the oysters. So the barnacles which are living on the cell of the bivalve mollusk or the oysters, and thus the oyster acts as a host. The oyster acts as a host which simply serves or which simply provides a substratum or a support for its forant. Forant means the barnacle. For its forant, the barnacle. Both the animals are completely independent of each other. Both the animals are completely independent of each other as far as their life activities are concerned. Means these are completely independent. The barnacles and the oysters are completely independent organisms, but the barnacles which lives on the cell of the bivalve mollusk, that is a host. So host organism, that is a bivalve mollusk providing a support in the form of substratum to the forant, that is a barnacle. But usually both the animals are completely independent of each other as far as their life activities are concerned. If the association is merely if the association is merely or a partial passive transportation of the symbiont, a commensal by the host, it is called as a phorecy. If the association is a loose type, if the association is or a relationship is of loose type and providing a support, that is a passive transportation, that is the passive transportation of the symbiont, that is barnacle, from one place to other place by the host, that is a bivalve mollusk, is called as phorecy. So phorecy is a loose form of relationship where one organism or the host provides a support just for its transportation from one place to other place. So that is the barnacles which are occurring on the cell of the bivalve mollusk are simply carried passively from one place to other place, and thus the barnacles and its host, that is a bivalve mollusk, will show a relationship, that is a loose form of relationship, that is just a passive transportation of the barnacles from one place to other place on the cell of the bivalve mollusk. So the barnacles living on the cell of the bivalves, the oysters or the bivalve mollusk acts as a host which simply serves or provides a substratum or a support to its forant, the barnacle. Both the animals actually are completely independent of each other as far as their life activities are concerned. And if the association or the relationship is merely a passive transportation of the symbiont or a commensal, that is barnacle, by the host, that is a bivalve mollusk or the oyster, it is called as phorecy or simply a passive transportation. So Foracy is a relationship between the symbiont and the host only for a passive support of the transportation called as Foracy. Then second, that is commensalism. Second type of animal association, that is commensalism. Commensalism is the Latin term. Co means together and mesa means a table. So it means the commensalism means eating at the same table, eating at the same table. So this occurs when one member of the association is usually smaller and receives all the benefits and from the other member, that is the host. So one partner of the relationship, one partner which is usually smaller, one partner of the relationship which is smaller gets all the benefits from the other member which is neither benefited nor harmed, which is neither benefited nor harmed. So commensalism, co means together, mesa means table. So this is also a loose form of relationship. This is also a loose form of relationship where association, one partner of the association always get benefited and other remains unbenefited and unharmed. So host will not have any problem for providing support to the other partner of the different species. So which acts as a commensal. The smaller partner or the partner which get benefit or the advantage of the relationship from the host is called as a commensal. Is called as a commensal. So the commensal may be a ectocommensal or the endocommensal living on the external surface or inside of the body of host. So the commensals shares the food of its host. The commensals shares the food of its host. The basis for a commensalism type of relationship may be a space, a substrate, a defense, a shelter, a food, or the transportation. So these are the some type of the requirements or the needs of the commensal, which will be obtained by the commensal from its host organism. So the basis for a commensalism type of relationship may be the space or substrate or the defense or the shelter or the food or the transportation. So this is also a loose form of relationship between the two partners of the two different species where one partner, that is a commensal, get benefited or the advantage of the relationship of the commensalism from the host organism. So the commensalism means eating at the same table. Literally, it means eating at the same table, and this occurs when one partner or one member of the association is usually smaller and gets all the benefits from the other partner, and the other member is neither benefited nor harmed, or other partner, that is the host, usually remains unbenefited or unharmed, is called as the commensalism. The commensal shares or utilizing the food of its host, sharing the food of its host. So the basis for a commensalism type of relationship may be a space, that is a living space, or a substrate, that is a support, or a defense, means getting the protection or the shelter from the certain enemies, or can get a food. The commensal or a smaller partner can get the food or can being transported with the host organism. So this is also a loose form of relationship between the two partners of the different species where the one partner, usually smaller partner, getting benefits and other partner, that is host, remain unbenefited or unharmed. So best example of this association is the sucker fish called a remora fish and its large, powerful and fast moving host such as a shark or a whales. So the relationship between the remora fish and the shark, the relationship between the remora fish and the shark represents the example of the commensalism. So the best example of this association is the sucker fish having sucker so as to attach to the body of the shark, that is a large, powerful, fast moving host of the sucker fish or the remora fish. So remora is a carnivorous fish. Remora fish, a smaller sucker fish. Remora is a carnivorous fish growing up to a 50 centimeter in length. It can swim independently. It can swim independently, but is more often carried by the host. But is oftenly carried by its host on the ventral side, that is a shark. So for this purpose, the first dorsal fin of the remora fish is modified into a flat multilaminated adhesive disc or a sucker. So with the help of this sucker, the remora fish remain attached to the ventral side of the body of shark. The food of remora fish consists of other fish. The food of remora fish consists of other fish and probably scrap of food which become available as the host, that is a shark, tears the flesh of its prey, that is other fish. And there are four major types of commensalism. In all the cases, the food of the commensal is in the close vicinity of its host. So the commensalism, the best example of the commensalism, that is the remora fish and the shark. So shark is a large carnivorous fish feeding on to the variety of fishes in the sea water, and the small remora fish or the sucker fish which acts as a commensal on the shark. So the small sucker fish or the remora fish, with the help of its suckers remaining attached on the ventral side of the head and getting or sharing the scrap of food of the prey which are tiered or which are uh, used as a food by the shark. So in this relationship or a loose partnership or the relationship between the shark and the a commensal, that is a sucker fish or the remora fish. So sucker fish or a remora fish being transported or carried along with the large shark or the host fish, together with the remora also getting the food or which is shared from the shark. So this is a loose form of relationship where remora fish getting the advantage or the benefit of the relationship, that is getting transported and also getting the food from the shark, which is a larger fish and which remain unbenefited and unharmed uh, as per the definition of the commensalism. So there are four major types of the commensalism. In all the cases, the food of the commensal is in the close vicinity or around the host organism. They are as follows. So first example, that is cattle egret and livestock. Cattle egret and the livestock. Livestock means the different animals, different animals, four-legged animals, or the mammals like cattle, horses, and cattle egret is a bird. Cattle egret is a bird or a species of heron. So The cattle aggregate and livestock is the first example of the commensalism. The popular example of the commensalism is the relationship between the cattle aggregates and the livestock. The cattle aggregate is a common species of heron, a bird, found mostly moving along with herds of cattle. This bird moves about in the pastures or the kuran or the grasslands and follows the livestock such as cattle and horses. The cattle aggregate eats the insects hiding under the vegetation close to the grounds, which get exposed when the cattle or horses walk through the vegetation or the kuran or the pastures, that is feeding pastures. So these are the areas or the grasslands where usually the cattle or horses feeds or foraging. So this is the popular example of the commensalism, and it is the relationship between the cattle aggregate and the livestock. The cattle aggregate is a common species of heron or a bird found mostly moving along with the herds of the cattle, and this bird moves about in the pastures or the kurans and follows the livestock or the feeding cattle or the horses in the vegetation or the kuran. The cattle egret eat up the cattle egrets feeds upon the insects hiding under the vegetation close to the grounds, which get exposed by the cattle when walking through the vegetation. Cattle egrets also follows grazing cows. Cattle egrets also follow grazing cows and eat the flies, mites, bugs that bite and bother the cattle. The movement of the foraging livestock, the movement of foraging livestock, that is cows or cattle or horses, also dislodges various insects from the field which cattle aggregate feed on, which cattle aggregates feed on. So there are different type of insects which are hiding in the vegetation or in the grass, which are be exposed by the feeding cattle, horses or the cows, which will be used by the cattle aggregate as a food. Together with the insects like flies, mites and bugs, which are causing harm or bites to the cattle, that are also consumed or eaten up by the cattle aggregates. So this is a relationship between the cattle aggregate and the cattle or the livestock like cattle, horses or the cows. So the cattle aggregate feeding upon to the variety of insects which are exposed or which are occurring hidden under the grass or the vegetation, which are exposed due to the movement of the grazing cattle or the horses. So ultimately that are used by the cattle aggregate as a food, and some type of insects which are harming the cattle such as the flies, mites and bugs, which are also eaten up by the cattle aggregate. So this is a symbiotic type of relationship between the cattle aggregate and the livestock. Then second example, that is phoretic or transport commensalism. Phoretic or a transport commensalism. There are many examples in the animals in which they depend on the larger partners for the purpose of transportation, phoretic or a transport commensalism. So there are many examples in the animals, as we have explained the example, that is remora fish and the shark. So similar to this, the phoretic or transport commensalism, there are many examples in the animals in which they depend on larger partners for the purpose of their transportation. A variety of nematode worms, beetles, insect larvae live in the fresh moist dung. Fresh moist dung. So this is the excrement or the excreta of the cattle or the many animals. So a variety of nematode worms, different type of nematode worms, then beetles and the insect larvae which lives in the fresh moist dung of the animals. In this temporary habitat, in this temporary habitat of the cow dung or the animal dung, the insect larvae or the beetles or the nematode worms complete their life cycle and flying or walking adults disperse or the leaves the cow dung or the animal dung to the fresh sites. So in this temporary habitat of the fresh moist dung, these insect larvae completing their life cycle and the adults of which then fly or walk out from the fresh moist dung to certain other fresh sites. For example, Pelodera correctata, Pelodera correctata is a free-living dung nematode. Is a free-living dung nematode which feeds on the bacteria, and this nematode undergoes a resting larval stage. This nematode undergoes a resting larval stage called as dower, which attach themselves to the different body parts of the dung beetle. So the dung nematode, the dung nematode larvae called as dower, which remains attached to the body of the dung beetle, Apodius pimentorius. So dung beetle, that is Apodius pimentorius, acts as a host of the nematode larvae or a dower. So when this beetle moves to the fresh dung heaps, also carries the dense cluster or a bunch or a group of nematode larvae, that is dowers, where they leave the beetle, the larvae feed and develop independently. The nematode larvae feed on the bacteria which are present in the fresh moist dung, where the nematode larvae feeding onto the bacteria and develops independently. Thus the nematodes and the beetle exhibit the example of phoretic commensalism. Means the free-living dung nematode, Pelodera correctata, the free-living dung nematode, Pelodera correctata, which is the free-living dung nematode, feeding on the bacteria. So this nematode undergoes its resting larval stage called as dower, which remains attached themselves to the body parts of the dung beetle. So the dung beetles here serves as a host. The dung beetle Apodius pimentorius, the dung beetle Apodius pimentorius serves as a host for the transportation of the dung nematode, and the larvae of the dung nematode are being carried by the body parts of the dung beetles. So when dung beetle moves to the fresh dung heaps, also carries the dense cluster of the attached dowers or the nematode larvae, where they leaves the beetle. Means the dung beetles carries the dower or the resting larval stages of the dung nematode, which is supposed to be carried by the dung beetle to the fresh moist heap of the dung, where the nematode larvae leaves the dung beetle and feeding onto the bacteria in the fresh moist dung heap. So the larvae feeding on the bacteria in the fresh moist heap of the dung and develops independently. Thus, the nematode and the beetles exhibit the example of the phoretic commensalism, that is, the nematodes are carried from place to place by the dung beetles. So, the dung beetle here serves as a host, and the nematode larvae or the pre-living dung nematode acts as a commensal which are carried from one place to other place, or one temporary habitat of the dung to the other habitat of the dung. So dung beetles which are carrying the nematode larvae from one place to other place, where the nematode larvae feeding onto the bacteria in the fresh moist dung. So here this is a relationship between the dung nematodes and the beetles. So dung nematode or the dung nematodes can be carried with the dung beetles from one place to other place. So this is again a phoretic or transport commensalism type of relationship between the nematodes and the beetles, representing the example of the phoretic commensalism. Then third type of commensalism, that is synoecious commensalism. Syno means with, oikos means habit or the house. Oikos means a habitat or the house, and syn means a with. So synoecious commensalism, in this association, one animal, usually smaller and more active, occupied the dwelling of another, but neither of the associate suffers any apparent damage or the loss. So this is the association between two organisms, one animal, that is a smaller animal or a commensal, which lives in the dwelling or the house or the habitat of the another organism, but neither of the associate or the host suffer from any injury or any loss or any damage. For example, the tiny pea crab, Pinia faba, the tiny pea crab, namely Pinea faba male, which is a small, and a female large, sheltered by the shell of gapper clam, sheltered by or getting support or shelter from the shell of the gapper clam, Schizotherius nuttall. Schizotherius nuttall is the host. Here, the gapper clam genus species Schizotherius nuttall is a host. So the cell of gapper clam providing support to the tiny pea crab Pinia faba male, which is smaller in size, and the female larger in size. So the males or the females of the tiny pea crab belonging to genus species Pinia faba getting shelter or the support of the cell of the gapper clam, that is a molluscan, Schizotherius nuttall. So this is the example of the synoecious commensalism. So in this association, the tiny pea crab, males or females, getting shelter or lives in the cell of the gapper clam, that is a host. But in this case, the tiny pea crab, either male or female, getting shelter from the cell of the gapper clam, which represents the host. So here the tiny pea crab is a commensal living in the cell of the gapper clam, and the gapper clam representing the host organism and will not get any of the harm or any damage or the loss due to the Symbiosis commensalism type of relationship of the tiny crab with the gapper clam, that is Schizotherius natal. So this is the example of the Symbiosis commensalism. Then protection and the camouflage commensalism. Protection and camouflage commensalism. This type of association is based on one animal is protecting or camouflaging its partner. So protection and the camouflage commensalism. So this type of association is based on one animal is protecting or camouflaging its partner or a commensal. The best known example of this kind is that of the sea anemone Adamsia palliates living on the shell of the hermit crab, that is Eupagurus Bernardus. In this case, sea anemone is transported and getting the food which is scattered by the crab. So this is again a relationship, protection or a camouflage type of commensalism. In this type of association, the one animal, that is a hermit crab, the one animal is protecting or camouflaging its partner. So provides hermit crab provides support to the sea anemone. So the best example of this type of animal association, that is camouflage or protection commensalism, is between the sea anemone Adamsia palliates living on the shell of the hermit crab, which represents the host, that is Eupagurus Bernhardus hermit crab is a host and the sea anemone is a commensal. Here in this example, hermit crab is a host and sea anemone is a commensal. In this case, the sea anemone lives on the back or on the shell of the hermit crab and is transported from one place to the other place. While its transportation, it can share the food of the crab also. It can share the food of the crab also. So the crab is covered by the ectocommensal. The crab is covered by its ectocommensal, that is sea anemone, and gets protection from the predators like octopus. So in this case, protection and camouflage commensalism, the sea anemone is transported on the back of or the shell of the hermit crab and getting transported from one place to other place and also getting the food or sharing the food of the crab, hermit crab. And in return, the sea anemone protects the hermit crab because of its nematocyst or its tentacles. Sea anemones which are having tentacles or the nematocyst which are useful in fighting with the enemies of the hermit crab. So hermit crab getting protection from the sea anemone which are living on the shell or on the back of the crab. So sea anemone getting the food, the sea anemone getting the food from the hermit crab and also carried from one place to other place on the shell of the hermit crab. In return, the hermit crab gets the protection. In return, hermit crab gets the protection from its ectocommensal, that is sea anemone. So ultimately, the hermit crab getting the protection from its predator, that is octopus. Then cleaning commensalism. another type of association between the organisms of different species, that is cleaning commensalism. There are many examples in which small marine fish and the shrimps regularly clean the bodies of large fishes and the turtles. So there are many examples in which the small marine fish or the shrimps regularly cleans the body of large fishes and the turtles. They remove the scrap of the food, they remove the scraps of the food, damaged and decaying tissues, and copypods, isopods, fungi, ectoparasites. So whatever the materials or the components present on the body of large fish or the turtles are removed or cleaned out by the smaller marine fish or the shrimps. So this is a regular cleaning mechanism. This is the regular cleaning mechanism performed, or the activity performed by the small marine fish and the shrimps from the body of large fishes and the turtles. So while cleaning, they remove the scraps of the food, damaged and decaying tissues, and the copypod, isopod, fungi, or the ectoparasite like small organisms from the body of larger fishes, which are harmful and irritating to the host. Some cleaner fish, sorry, some cleaner fish, some cleaner fish do their cleaning job in the juvenile stages or young stages. Some cleaner fish do their cleaning job in their juvenile stage or the young stage. The example of the large fish, the grouper fish, and its tiny commensal, the Nigon goby. The Nigon goby, the Nigon goby is a small, tiny commensal or the ectocommensal of the a large marine fish called as a grouper fish. So, some cleaner fish doing their cleaning job in the juvenile stage or young stage, and the example of the large fish, the grouper fish, and its tiny commensal, that is Nigon goby. So, Nigon goby is a cleaning fish and the host fish, that is a large fish, that is a grouper fish, which serves as the host of the Nigon goby. Sometimes, sometimes shrimps enter the mouth. Sometimes the shrimps, so these are the aquatic arthropods. The shrimps are the aquatic arthropods which enter the mouth of the host fish. Often the host fish, which often opens or keeps its mouth open, and the shrimps which enters the mouth of the larger fish pick its teeth or the gills. Sometimes shrimps are allowed to make minor incisions or the injury in order to remove the subcutaneous parasites. So sometimes Sometimes the shrimps enter the mouth of its host fish. Sometimes the shrimps enters the mouth of its host fish and pick up and picks its teeth or gills, means the dust or the dirt, removing the dust or the dirt or the other components which are entangled into the teeth or into the gills of the host fish. So, the cleaning commensalism of the shrimps, during which it can share the food from the host fish, but in return, the cleaning activity, that is picking the teeth or the gills and removing the entangled the materials, might be a food that could be removed by the shrimps from the mouth cavity or the teeth or the gills. So this is the a type of cleaning commensalism between the shrimps and the host fish. That is, shrimps entering the mouth and cleaning the teeth or cleaning the gills and removing the debris or the uh, various materials or the food materials which are entangled with the teeth or the gills that are shared or used as a food by the shrimps. So this is a cleaning job performed by the shrimps in the mouth of the host fish, where it performs a cleaning activity of the teeth or the gills. Then some shrimps are allowed, or some shrimps which make the minor incisions or the injury so as to remove the subcutaneous parasites. So see, these subcutaneous parasites can be used by the shrimps as a food. Some terrestrial animals, some terrestrial animals also show the cleaning commensalism. Some terrestrial animals, some terrestrial animals also show the cleaning commensalism. For example, the Indian cattle egret, that is a species of heron or a bird which removes the ectoparasite from the cattle and deers such as ticks or mites. Ticks and mites, ticks and mites can be uh, ectoparasites occurring on the cattle or the deers and which can be removed by the cattle egret. So the Indian cattle egret, some terrestrial animal showing the cleaning commensalism or the activity, that is removing the ticks and mites from the skin or the body of the cattle and deers. So this is the best example of the cleaning commensalism, where the Indian cattle egret removes the ectoparasites, that is ticks and mites, from the body of the cattle and deers. So ultimately this will provide a service of cleaning of the body of the cattle and deers to remove the ticks and mites, but which are used by the cattle egret as a food. So this is also a relationship between the cattle egret and the cattle and deers, where the relationship will exhibit or shows the example of the cleaning commensalism. So this is about the commensalism. So today with this we'll stop here, and next time we'll continue with the next type of relationship or the association, that is mutualism. So with this today we'll stop here. Thank you.